Hello to another episode of Shine Like a Gem. We have Megan Seamans here today. Hello, Megan.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited as well. Goodness. Now, I just want to be sure that I'm saying your name correctly in the fact that on our Zoom screen, it's a little different. And so I just want to make sure folks aren't like, sorry, you just totally messed up someone's name.
I'm living in the liminal space of having two names right now. So I got married in September, and so I did choose to take my husband's last name, which is Johnston. So in some places, I'm Megan Johnston. In most places on the internet, I'm Megan Seamans.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. I personally knew that, but just in case, because there are going to be folks that write to me, be like, Flora, just so you know, like, did you know you said the person's name incorrectly? And I'll be like, oh, yeah, no, thank you for, keeping track. So,
Totally.
and congratulations. I totally understand when you are in two different worlds with it and you're like, what do I do now with this?
It's a thing that I didn't know would fully be a thing. Like, I did a lot of energetic sitting with the process of a name, and then there's still so many things that come after.
Absolutely. Yeah. And isn't that just the case about life and spiritual lessons or when we're just dropping in for a decision? I mean, hey,
Yes, just when you think you've got it, you're like, oh, there's all these other things. Okay, great.
great. Well, I already know what our third slide will be for us today, which is about decision making and
Ooh.
what happens and it's unexpected. So I'm going to pin that and I'm just to tell people about you. And so let's begin. Megan Siemens or Johnston is a certified life and energy coach who helps big hearted humans create success without the stress of comfort zones, people pleasing, or burnout getting in the way. She teaches clients how to integrate their human design so they can balance out into life on purpose. After helping hundreds of humans around the globe, Megan's been named the Clarity Queen as her coaching helps crystallize their vision into reality, no overwhelm required. Centered on ease, she loves holding space for clients to get unstuck and finally live their full story. You'll find Megan share her joy and wisdom on places like Tiny Buddha, Elite Daily, and numerous podcasts. When Megan is not coaching, you will find her on an airplane off to somewhere new, quite frequently, by the way. And she currently lives in Florida, and her website is megansiemens.com. Yes.
That's me.
So let's talk a little bit about when you entered into DECS, Devoted
Mhm.
Energy School, and there were times where we would be in an experience together.
Mhm.
Sometimes you would have, let's say, physical reactions.
Mhm.
Want to go there first? I don't know why I feel called to go there first.
Sure, probably because it's like right in the deep end, and that's what my experiences with Sora are generally. There's no shallow end swimming, easing in. It's right on in. Yes, I had so many physical experiences entering into decks, whether it was feeling like my words couldn't even come out because my throat would feel like closed up, or my chest getting like super red when I was speaking, shaking, like feeling like, oh my gosh, if someone could see my hands on the screen right now, they would be like, why is she so unsteady? So I had so many physical reactions.
And you still continue to show up. Why?
I did. I did. Sometimes I think about that and I'm like, why? Why did I? But I think what it comes down to is every single time I did show up, those started to dissipate. Those reactions started to dissipate. They would get a little more easeful. And I was also held in a container where I could actually actively work through it instead of just push past it with the like learn the material, do the things. I actually could very actively be held and work through that.
As you worked through it, I know that one of your deepest medicinal skills is constantly being curious.
Mm.
We often say we should be curious, but you innately have that in you in your birthright. You just always love asking questions and looking at things and understanding things. So, do you feel like inside of DECS, for someone who loves to ask questions, was that cultivated or not? How did it help support yourself and others, or did it not?
Oh, 100%. I feel like it only enhanced the way I ask questions. Like it allowed me to get curious in ways that like stretched beyond any limits I may have had in place. Like it allowed me to ask harder questions to people or questions that weren't surface level but brought them into their depths. And I still see that with my clients now. Like I'll ask a question and I'm like, oh, why are we going there? And it's similar to what we started this conversation with, jumping right into the deep end, but being able to do that in a way that feels safe and not jarring to your nervous system.
Yeah. And being able to be in that safe space without being jarring, but also a little bit of a ruffle, like a,
Mm-hmm.
oh, right? Like, oh, we're going there, and a hesitation sometimes for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So with your clients, what has Dex kind of helped you with that kind of space holding for folks to be able to bump up against their resistance and
Mm.
then still be able to slide under, through, to the side, over, or completely in a different direction, but still address it?
I feel like just that analogy of like sliding under, over to the side, like around it, like it's almost like Dex has helped open up my perspective point and has like allowed me to utilize things like imagination and liminal space and to be able to see in ways that I wasn't seeing before. I feel like that sounds very like elusive, but it's almost as if just like my line of vision as a coach has like broadened and it's allowed me to see, is there something underneath? Is there something over here on the side? And to catch those little triggers or tripwires that clients might have that allows me to go, oh, let's stay there for a second.
Absolutely. And that's something that you were saying about it's being elusive. And for
Mm,
folks to feel like they resonate with being curious and
mm-hmm.
asking questions, they might often say, well, I'm not that elusive. I like need tangible. I need facts. I need some grounding. Can you share a little bit about how your mystical senses or your even intuitive spaces kind of opened up throughout the process?
Yeah, it just kind of naturally happened. Like I am I feel like I've always been someone who I have that innate curiosity and I've been somewhere in the middle of like grounded in the facts and the practical, but like spiritually curious, but not really sure what to do with that. And I feel like the magic of Dex is showing us that there's not like one way to be spiritual. There's not one way to do spiritual practices or be in spiritual practices, and it allowed me to see like how I can show up in those spiritual ways.
Yeah. And I remember, let's say the first time you were able to see something, or
Mhm.
then you'd be able to like taste something, or like there's different things would happen. Like
Yeah.
you saw a unicorn and you really wanted to go with it. And I told you, let's stay here. And you were very bummed about the situation, or there was these things that would occur, which
Yeah.
often on the outside looks like imagination, which it is, but it's a portal into the energetic field. And so
Yeah.
any memories that come up for you around even your superpowers being activated in those ways?
Well, you said the unicorn, so I feel like we can't not go there for at least a second, but I do feel like I have many examples of this. Yeah, I feel like one thing that Dex really opened up for me was knowing that we can have access to seeing, sensing, and knowing things in many different ways. Whereas before, I would be like, oh, I have to visualize something. So I have to see the unicorn for it to work, whether it's like manifesting or working through something. I have to like see it, visualize it. And now, like since Dex, I feel like I know I can see it, I can visualize it, but it's not always going to come to me in that way. And it's not always going to come to other clients in that way. We can have access to all of them, but also we can play in the ones that work really well for us. So I went a little off there, but I feel like the unicorn was like a really beautiful example of that because I always felt like I wasn't super visual, but I feel like in that moment I realized, oh, I actually am a little bit visual and I have access to simply know things. I hear things quite often, and to be able to trust those things as powerfully as I trust something as tangible as a vision. Yeah.
That's so important to remember and recognize. And I find that folks say yes from a cerebral place, that is true, but then
Mm-hmm.
from a space of play, exploration, wondering if they can, quote, do this as a coach, they
Yeah.
start second guessing, thinking those powers are less than. Like we start putting
Mm-hmm.
them in this hierarchical order.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I'm still very actively working on like, am I doing it the right way? I said that before we hit record. So like I'm still very actively working through that. And because of DECS, I have that awareness to get to step back and be like, wait, I know what the answer to that is. And that is that there is no right way here.
Yeah. Okay, so based on you talking about your clients, I want to go there before I go asking you about your own personal experiences with your clients, right? And their kind of how they've been moving through this as you offer this to them. I want to talk a little bit about business because often
Mm-hmm.
folks, and I haven't asked this question to anyone, but often folks will consider something like DEX because they're like, this is going to like be epic in my business. This is going to make my business do all these things. And I find that this helps you go through your own personal journey of whatever that is to find alignment with yourself
Mm-hmm.
and essentially your business. So I'm not here to ask you for your like highs of everything, but just more of an honest share around what what do you feel like has occurred based on you being able to use your energy skill sets and you're being in that trusting space in relation to your business.
Mm. I think, for starters, I think I'm able to meet my clients in a deeper way. And I truly believe that as coaches, when we focus on mastering our craft, other things in business become, I'm going to use the word easier, but I don't mean it in like, oh, I can be a really good coach and then I can go like start a business and it's just going to be like, woohoo, everything's done and easy. But I do feel like it's so easy to get so caught up in the strategy and like the funnel. Am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? But remembering like why you became a coach in the first place and zoning in on being really good at that, I think that's so overlooked in the coaching world and the space holding world. And I just feel like the deeper I can hold my clients, the easier, for lack of a better word here, my business becomes. Like I think, some tangible examples of that is because I'm holding my clients at a different depth, I'm creating content from a different space. I'm creating offerings from a different space. I'm more aware of what I have energetic capacity to hold in an offering. And I remember like you and I had a coaching session, I think mid last year, where we came to the realization that I wanted to shed all of these offers that were working really well and just come to deep, intimate one on one coaching work. And giving myself that permission of what do I have energetic capacity for has allowed me to scale my business in a more easeful way.
Absolutely. And I know like for myself, often the energy coaching helps me energy coach myself during those moments where it feels like nothing's working or I'm really confused and
Mm-hmm.
know I'm not supposed to know everything. And so there's this space of things are exploding, which kind of is part of my design to begin with, so that I can learn and help others learn it. And it's
Right.
tender to go through that cycle and that evolution.
Yeah.
And there are times where I think this, I just have to let it all go. Other times I'm like, I have to grip so hard, and I know that I'm trying to control. And sometimes it's tears, and sometimes it's laughter, and sometimes it's taking a month of a sabbatical. But I can only move through that because there is this anchoring point with many tools to help serve me.
Yeah. I think that I do that more than I even realize that I do that. Like I notice that I'll consciously take those steps back to be energy coaching myself, to be with myself. And I'm okay with that space now more than ever. Whereas before it would be like, space. No, we can't do space. We have a business to sustain. We have things to sustain. But I trust that space more.
Yeah. And it's been so wonderful to see you really coming home to yourself more and
Mm,
more each year, right? Like honoring your passions, honoring your strengths, and finding an alternative way of living a life that is purely your own, including your business.
mhm.
And that we don't have to be in the streamlined way that everyone else does things.
Yes. Thank you for witnessing that in me.
Yeah. So, can you share a little bit about maybe a client or a client's journey and how energy coaching kind of supports their own evolution, and why, because you have been coaching for a very long time, what is the flavor that makes this different?
Mm. Yeah, I have one client that comes to mind who I've actually been coaching for a couple of years now, and she found out I got energy coaching certified. She's like, I'm in, I'm on board. Like, take me through it. So it was very different than the space I had held for her before. And, you know, she shared reflections with me since then of the way she uses these tools in her day to day life now. Like, I just feel like energy coaching gives you, just like when we were talking about coaching ourselves, like we get to gift our clients that as well. And so for her, she was like, the way I can move through moments of anxiety now, and I can remember to like connect back to my body, find that space in my body and work with it, is like magical. And so it was so cool to see. You know, I'd been coaching her for several years and we've done some amazing things together, but now she's not only being in that space with me, but she's doing it when I'm not there. And that's so, so beautiful to witness in a client.
I agree. I think that's so powerful. Number one, to have someone that you're on a journey with for a while, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think is a very special thing to begin with, hands down.
Mm-hmm.
To witness them grow is incredible as well. But then to witness them grow, take this enormous responsibility, have them kind of mature in their sense of holding themselves, only means that you do get to go deeper
Yeah.
because they're so self-aware. And so they're not leaning on you or relying on you for anything. They simply
Mm-hmm.
are asking you to walk with them, and that this becomes an epic journey of self-healing, but you being able to capture and be one to bear witness. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
who doesn't want someone to witness their transformation and reflect it back, and not
Mm-hmm.
solo healing journey?
Yes. And this is something that I learned personally entering into energy coaching school as well. I was like, oh, I don't have to be like codependent on a coach. Like, I can be held in space and also hold myself in space. And the way that that facilitates growth is, I mean, that's quantum leaping if I've ever found a definition for it.
And I do get curious around that, right? And even now,
Mm,
I get mindful around the space of codependency,
mm,
in self-development, guiding, coaching, and wanting to be mindful that yes, we are here and we desire to support, but also that there isn't this weird energetic kind of attachment that makes them want to come back to continue because it's like a spiritual boost of some sort. Um, And so I find that the fact of the matter of being able to translate those tools so that your clients could do it themselves is really helpful. But I also think our prayers help. Want to
Mm,
talk a little bit about like your relationship with that inside of our space?
yes, I was definitely not connected to prayer before entering into DECS. It was a very, I mean, it was just a concept that wasn't close to me. Like it wasn't something I necessarily used in my practice. It was something I'd heard of, but it was always very attached to religion as well. So when I first found out we were going to do prayer, I was like, what? But okay, I'm here for the ride. Like, I'm going to get curious with it. So, bringing my own kind of innate gifts into it, like, I'm just going to get curious with it and see how it lands. And gosh, I have trouble putting into words like the power of prayer because it really is that trust of the space in between. Like there's just things that happen when we put prayers into the field that are unexplainable.
There really is. And that prayers could be an offering of gratitude and celebration and setting and opening a space. But it
Mm-hmm.
also carries the frequency of all those that have been putting a prayer in the same intentional field together.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that part makes us feel like we're not alone, no matter whether or not GEM graduates ever connect with me or the group again or not. I feel like there's that open door because we've shared that prayer field as if
Mm-hmm.
we have shared bread, or for me, rice, like and sitting around a table
Yeah.
that will forever remember that. So there's an open door for people to come and go. And if they are in need of any support, but to me, that feels like a really supportive anchoring space.
Yeah, that's very true. And what's interesting is I find that even if I step away from DECS for a bit, when I come back, like it's just there's no beat skipped and like there's a connection point there always. And I think that is like the prayer field that is always laid out for everyone. It's I can just walk back in the door and there's no like, oh, where's Megan been? It's just like, oh, yeah, Megan's here. And also I feel like I'm connected to what everyone else is sharing. It's not like that feeling of if you like walk into a room and you're like, what is everyone talking about? Like it's just like, oh yeah, I understand.
Yes, totally. There's an understanding, whether it's because we're talking about DEX or we're talking about life.
Yeah.
Life can change very quickly, but also there's still this very specific soul frequency that's there, and we can tap into that always. I
Mm-hmm.
agree.
Mm-hmm.
So one other question, because you spoke a lot about your individual one-on-one clients and that you've really wanted to open up that intimacy, but you also hold really great group experiences. Whether you do them right now or not, you in general are amazing at holding those group spaces. Do you want to talk a little bit about your journey with that and also how it may have been helpful in using DEC's method, devoted method, in those group spaces?
Yes. So there is always a part of me that does love group spaces. I love the intimate one-on-one work is like my favorite, but I also have a 4 in my profile in human design, which is all about community. And so I think I'll always have a space in my heart for holding group space when it feels like the right time. So I've always held group space. It has always had like pre-DECS. We're in pre-DECS timeline and post-DECS timeline. Pre-DECS, it almost had like an undercurrent of nerves. It had an undercurrent of nerves. It definitely had an undercurrent of like, am I going to do this right? That's a reoccurring story for me. And post DECS or with the devoted method, I feel anchored. Like I feel like I don't have to have a full script written out, but I have anchoring points. So I know where I am in a process. And there's something very refreshing about that. Like I feel like before I felt like because of the nerves, I had to like script every single word out, which is actually like very opposite of how I'm kind of designed. And so to be able to have these anchoring points and know like where I am moving through the process has been really, really powerful for me. There's definitely still nerves. I want to make that clear. There's definitely still nerves, but they have a different flavor. They have more of a grounded feeling to them rather than this like sore nose. When I'm really nervous, I get like a little high pitched. I get like a little overly excited. Like my voice will do this thing that I'm doing right now, and I don't have that anymore. I still have nerves; they're there, but I can just express me, and I can connect back to myself within the devoted method. So I can hold space while holding myself.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. And because each individual gem always has something that they desire to work on or feel like I don't know how to work on this thing, right? And so we get to, as a community, support one another. And do you mind me sharing one of the things in the group spaces that you were like, Sora, I don't know how to do this.
Please, I'm excited to hear it.
Do you remember it was about the opening and the ending? How to
Oh,
like
it's a thing for me. It was a thing.
it was a thing. And for other folks it might be like, well, what do you mean? But it's true, everyone has their own flavor to it. But I know for you at the ending you'd be like, I don't know, I feel awkward ending. How do you end and say goodbye? Like I say bye and then I end. Like what is this idea of ending?
Yeah.
And so which I think we could go into a whole energy coaching space in regards to that in general.
Yes.
But it was so beautiful to witness you continue to want to figure that part out for yourself and how you wanted to open or end your way, not to be Sora, but be your unique self in that. And you kept practicing and you're amazing at it.
Oh, well, thank you. And yes, it was a piece of the group experience that had all of the questions for me. And that again, back to the magic of the container of DECS, like I was able to explore that in energy coaching with another amazing coach while also just getting curious with like, well, how would I end? Like you were saying. So yeah, that was a journey.
That was the journey. Okay, last question, and then we'll offer up your own energy tool and experience,
Okay.
which is we mentioned briefly throughout our conversations around practice and you trying things out and you being energy coached by another gem,
Mhm.
but folks might not fully understand what that
Mm.
means. So do you want to share a little bit about how you've been energy coached by other students and or just kind of what that all is and means?
Oh gosh, yes, I will be mindful of time because I feel like I could do like a whole 30-minute spiel on being coached by other energy coaches and DECS. It was one of my favorite elements of DECS, an unexpected favorite element of DECS for sure. But there were so many ways that I could be coached by other fellow gems, whether it was when I was actively in the course and I was being coached by the other gems that were also moving through the program with me. Sometimes that would be live where we would receive feedback from other gems and also Sora. Sometimes it would be on our own time doing buddy sessions where we could practice. And then beyond, when I graduated from DECS, I still continued to be coached by gems that were moving through the course in their own new cohort, which I feel like that the being coached when I was moving through the training is one thing, but being coached in when you're out of the training, it's like you're all moving through this experience where like my nerves are still there. They're having nerves because they're new and we're all moving through it together. And it was this reminder of like, there's no hierarchy. None of us are better at this than other. And there were constant reminders of that. And that is one of the most valuable things I took out of DECS. But yeah, there were so many ways that I was coached by other gems, buddy sessions, like just connecting with gems on a random Tuesday to just move through. Like, hey, I need some energy coaching. Is anyone around to help? And that's happened. So there's been so many ways that I've had that experience, and it's one of the most invaluable tools that I took out of DECS.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for sharing. Yeah, there are so many ways in it. It is one of my favorite things to witness
yeah.
as I'm holding and just to witness all the alchemical process happening and the emotions. It's so good. Okay, so with that feeling of just excitement and all the different tools, may you offer up a practice. Our through line for this interview series for folks is around blissfully be our medicine and serve abundantly from like a capacity standpoint.
Mm.
So if you wouldn't mind taking the reins as Queen, I don't remember what it was.
Clarity Queen.
Of Clarity Queen, as Mrs. Clarity Queen. Please do so. And I shall mute myself once the pinwheel of pause finishes. Oh, here we go.
Wonderful. Okay, so we are going to do a very simple practice of connecting with our heart space. And I say simple because I do find that so often people forget how impactful really simple practices can be. And this is one of my favorites. So we're going to be connecting with our heart space. And in DECS, we learn about our centers in our body. And one of my favorite things that Sora shared in class that I use continuously is the reminder that most humans live from their neck up. So, living in our mind, living in our headspace, letting our voice process things, but we have a whole other body underneath that has so much wisdom. And so, if I had to boil centers down to one sentence, it would be that it's learning to connect with the different spaces of your body, hearing their wisdom, and just letting yourself settle into you. So, we will move through connecting with our heart center today. So, if you would like to either close your eyes or softly gaze down, whichever feels good for you, and simply begin with 3 breaths. And I like to use the word in as you're taking these breaths. So, I invite you to try on that word as well. And keeping your eyes closed, get curious with how close you can get to your heart center. And if you aren't sure what that means, simply find the beat of your heart. One of my teachers calls that a symptom of our aliveness. So, connecting with that beat, the aliveness, and letting that pulse guide you in. And feeling connected to that pulse. Perhaps give it a color, noticing if you see, sense, know, or hear a color coming through. And as you sit in that space, feeling the color expanding and contracting, continuing to use that word in. I'm just going to pause here for a moment as you just connect inward. Letting yourself be in this loving and expansive state. Noticing if there's any wisdom coming through or if it feels good to just simply be. Remembering that you always have access to this space. Taking in any final pieces that desire to come through as you begin to zoom yourself out. With each inhale and exhale, bringing yourself to the fullness of your body. Beginning to notice the space around you. Maybe the way the air hits your skin. And with one final deep inhale and exhale, gently bringing yourself back, opening your eyes in your own time.
Thank you, Megan, for that. You can really feel the flavor of your medicine as you spoke about being even much more grounded, and there's like a wider, deeper resonance and tone in the way you drop people in, and the field itself feels that. It feels a bit more as if you were in a well and you can hear it, but also you're like floating in the depths of it. And so that flavor feels different than how you felt before. And so I'm just really honoring your own inner work and your ability to hold space and the frequency of it when you're dropping folks in, including myself today. So thank you.
Thank you. I received that.
Mm. All right. Well, it was a joy to have you today and go down memory lane and reflect back all the things and celebrating just you and your life and your lived experience and how you're moving and navigating your humanness right now.
Thank you. It has been such a joy to share with everyone today.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed today and we look forward to seeing you all soon. Bye, everyone.